Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Cruz.
Here.
Councilmember Hewer.
Here.
Councilmember Campion.
Here.
Councilmember Lamson. Mayor Powers.
Here. We'll take a minute for the silent prayer, and then Councilmember Campion, would you lead us in the flag salute, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oops. Hey, Donna, could you please read the video statement?
This meeting of the Galt City Council will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the Local Government Affairs channel, on the Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T Uverse cable systems. The meeting is closed captioned and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will air Friday, April 21st at 9 a.m. and Saturday, April 22nd at 9 a.m. The City Council meeting videos are also archived on the city's website.
Thank you, Donna. Is there any agenda approval additions and/or deletions, Council?
I would ask that consent item 5 be pulled for discussion, please.
Okay.
Also, if we can move item G3 to the front of the agenda.
Okay, 3 up before 1.
Correct.
All right. Okay, anything else, Council? Okay, moving right along. Presentations. Introduction of new employees. We're going to start off with, who's going to start? Hello. Okay, you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight, or this afternoon, we're pleased to introduce our newest employee in Public Works, and he's in the Utilities Maintenance Division. Alex, if you step forward here, we'll introduce you. Alex is a product of Lodi, where he lives and went to school. And you come right on over here, Alex. And he was hired on as I believe, a part-time maintenance worker in our Utilities Division, and was recently promoted to a vacant wastewater treatment plant operator entry-level position. And he's already achieved his operator in training status with the state, has a water distribution grade 2 license and a Class A driver's license, which comes in handy if we ever need to move large equipment in the middle of the night or whatever as an on-call thing. So I'd like to introduce Alex Dijogo.
Well, welcome, Alex. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. See you, Alex. Thanks.
Okay, I guess it's up to you, Chief.
So Greg and Chelsea can come up. Stand right in front of everybody. I've said this before, and I mean it, that hiring the right people really makes the city and makes the police department that special place that it is. And so we've, over the last 6 months, have really boosted our efforts in recruitment to find the brightest folks to come out and be part of our family. So first I'm going to introduce Chelsea Jordan. And so it was a very long process. She is our newest dispatcher. I reported to you a few months ago that we were fully staffed in dispatch and we had one of our dispatchers leave. And so it took no time at all to get Chelsea finished up with the process. In the middle of all that, I had citizens from Galt continually calling me and continually emailing me and telling me why am I taking so long? She is an amazing person, so hurry up and hire her. And so the minute I had the opening, I took that opportunity. So, Chelsea's born and raised in Lodi. And she has a brother, Chad, and it looks like you have other people here in the audience, too. And your mom, and you get to introduce her here in a minute. And so, she was in the medical field and then decided that public safety is where she wanted to work. I can tell you that in her off time, she really enjoys outdoors, hiking and fishing and all of those amazing things outdoors. So she's going to fit in nicely within our dispatchers, and we're very pleased to have her. So this is Chelsea Jordan. Next, I'm introducing Officer Greg Steele. And so Officer Steele started with us yesterday, which is why normally we do a swearing in, but we weren't 100% sure how quickly. We were hoping that he was going to be here for the introduction, so he will be sworn in officially at the next council meeting. But I want to take the opportunity to introduce him. So, he is an engineer. 15 years as an engineer. Studied to be an engineer in Kansas, at the University of Kansas, and then decided one day, and I'm still going to tell the story that I told this morning, one day he and his wife were on a motorcycle ride and see a horrible accident, car accident. Flames, people injured, and as he put it, people were running away from the scene where he was running to it. And he decided at that point that that is going to be his opportunity and this is his calling to be in public safety. So he gave up his engineering profession and pursued his law enforcement career. And so we're pleased that he wants to make Galt his home. And so he and his wife have a 6-year-old daughter. Kellyanne is his daughter, and his wife's name, and I'm going to get this right, Ala Senya. Get it? Good enough. So they live in West Sacramento, and they are now here with us in Galt. So we're very pleased to have him. And this is Officer Greg Steele. Now I'm going to step away from the podium, and it's your guys' opportunity to say hello to the public and your new family. Nobody run up here. You don't have to.
As you know, my name is Chelsea. I came with my mom today, Sheila. I'm very pleased and grateful to have the opportunity to work for City of Galt. I'm hoping to be a good addition to the department, and everyone here I'm going to consider family. So thank you for everything.
Well, welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me. I want to express how much gratitude I have for being given the opportunity to join your team and help serve your city. It will soon be my city, and I'm excited for that day. Thank you very much.
Well, welcome to both of you. Okay, now the Winter Bird Festival recap.
Good afternoon, Mayor and, good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. Excuse me, I'm feeling a little under the weather, so I volunteered Monica to come and help me today. So she'll be giving my presentations, but I'll be available to answer any questions for you.
Welcome. So, the Winter Bird Festival. In 2007, the City of Galt held its inaugural Winter Bird Festival. This festival was brought forth from the then council member Tim Raboy. Councilmember Man Raboy wanted the festival to be an affordable event so that the whole family could attend. In 2017, we celebrated our 10th year, so our 10th annual Winter Bird Festival. On the screen, you see the poster that was designed for the event, and the bird is Anna's hummingbird. This bird is a permanent resident along our Pacific coast, staying through the winter in many areas where no other hummingbirds are present. So we have our tours. The Big Day Bird Tour, Kids Treasure Hunt, Casunas River Preserve Spanish Speaking Tour, the Wetlands Dawn Tour, Bird with the Best, Bird Walk at the Winery, Birds and Beer, and the Delta Birding Tour. The first 3 tours were canceled either due to low registrations and or the flooding of the preserves. And then the Wetlands, we had 12 of 14 seats sold for $420. Birds with the Best, we sold 16 of 17 for $560. Bird and Winery, 10 of 24 seats were sold for $300. Birds and Beer, 21 of 23 were sold. The bus was not charged, and that was $200. The Delta Tour, 13 of 13 were sold for no profit, no money. And the Staten Island, we sold 44 of 44 seats, but the bus did not show up, so all 44 people were reimbursed for that tour. Speakers and presentations. Backyard Bird Safari, Buzz on Hummingbirds, Going Batty, Hawks, Honkers, and Hoots, and Should Have Been Wild Things, Inc., but they never showed up. So this is our keynote speaker, David Allen Sibley, and I believe Armando referred to him as a rock star. So you see the different books that he's written up on the screen. And he was very popular. We had people coming from all over just to meet with him and get his autographs with their own books, as well as some of the books that we sold. Here are our sponsors for the event: Cal Waste Recovery Systems, E&J Gala Winery, Westervelt Ecological Services, Central Valley Joint Venture, the Nature Conservancy, and a special thanks to the Galt Herald for their continued support for the events and coverage. Revenue and expenditures. So you see we have the sponsorships, vendor booth rentals, miscellaneous revenue, books and t-shirts, and then the tour. And then down below are the expenditures with the presenters, expenditures, and staffing. So we had a loss of $4,611. Any questions?
I'll be glad to answer any questions for you if you guys have them. I want to explain that our staffing that we used in our expenditure report are full burden costs, as we'll be talking about what full burden costs are in our special events. We would like to ask you how would you like to go about this again? We're recommending that we continue on. As you know, we lost Jennifer Cannell, who's our long-time coordinator for this event. And what staff would like to do is hold this event one more year, bring it back to this side of town, utilizing City Hall, Littleton, Shabola Center, and the Parks and Rec office, and possibly Fairsight School. And we'd like to just tighten it up a little bit, do a little things differently, and then make sure that we come in under budget next year.
Well, I think the bummer was being over budget was because the bus didn't show up and you had to cancel things. So
yeah,
and
there
wet, and it
was-
was really
And the
wet.
weather.
It was a really bad weekend.
It
Well, with
was
the
a very bad
with the
Yeah.
cancellation though, they gave full reimbursement, and they actually even donated money back to us, the cost of what the bus would have been, even though we didn't pay them any of that money.
That's good.
Well, historically, hasn't it at least broke even or had a surplus at the end of each event?
It's my understanding that when calculated, they didn't use full burden cost of all events.
For staff.
All of staff.
I see.
Yeah.
And if you
So
look,
that you don't have an equal comparison, is what
No,
you're saying?
those were the soft costs or the hard costs.
Right.
They didn't account. This actually accounts for the soft cost, which is that I'm salary, Monica's time. So it's included in there.
Okay.
Well, maybe the weather will be,
Yeah.
there's going to be up years and down years with the weather, but I think it's such an outstanding event that I would hate to see it not continued, because I just know that everybody that I've ever talked to that's come to it has just absolutely had a great time and thought it was really a wonderful event for families. So I think that we can provide that is a good thing.
I agree. It's a good event.
And I'm thinking back when it was originally done. Did we use the school's buses for transportation? Was that the reason that we were out there?
The first year we had it at the Shabola Center. I wasn't involved the second year, and I don't know why the decision was made to move it to the school district, McCaffrey.
Yeah.
We just logistically looking at it, having the two community centers, the Parks and Rec building, and even
Yeah.
this, council chambers here with the cameras set up and everything. We just could do a little bit more. And
I think it's a good idea.
Well, and I think the parking would be better over here. The parking at McCaffrey is a little bit of a problem when you come for the speakers, and
It's true.
so, sounds good.
Okay, thank you very much, Monica. Okay, where are we at? Did you read public comment already? Okay, public comment, sorry.
Under Government Code Section 54954.3, members of the public may address the council on non-agenda items. Speakers may address council on any agenda item during consideration of the item. Speakers shall restrict their comments to issues that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council and limit comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Please fill out a speaker sheet located on the table inside the entrances to the council chambers and forward the completed speaker sheet to the clerk. We have one.
Yeah, we have one speaker that was something that's not on the agenda, and that'd be Barbara Payne.
Good afternoon, Council, Mayor. I want to talk to you tonight about the Galt Community Grant. The Galt Community of Character Coalition wanted to apply for that for a, for the community garden to build a greenhouse there. And the Galt Community of Character Coalition is, or has been assigned by the Internal Revenue to be a 501c4. And currently, the grant requires you be a 501c3. And I don't remember why, when I was on the council, why we narrowed the field to just be a 501c3, to not include 501c4s, which would be service clubs like the Rotary Club, or in this case, the Galt Community of Character Coalition. I would like for the council to maybe look into it and consider broadening the ability for people to apply for that grant. The Galt Community of Character Coalition at the community garden, we feel like we would qualify for that grant because for many reasons. One, the addition of the community garden to the Harvey Park area has made the neighborhood not only more attractive, but safer. The other thing, the community garden services all ages, seniors, youth. We have children from the Head Start program. There are 30 of them that come out. They come marching from their school like little ants, and they grow in their garden. They pull weeds. We also have Girl Scouts that has a garden. In addition to that, we have a lot of seniors that live in apartments that this is the only access they have to being outdoors and digging in the dirt. So we think that the community garden should qualify for this grant. We also feel that it's educational because, especially with the children, if they learn where vegetables come, and believe it or not, some of them today do not know where vegetables come. They think they come in a can, always. So we think that this is a project that is worthy of the grant and would like you to consider looking at the requirement of being a 501c3, maybe extend it to 501c3-4. Any questions? Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we're at the consent calendar, and Councilmember Campion, you wanted 5 pulled?
Yes, I know there's a member of the public that would like to speak on it, and maybe before he gets up and speaks, there's a couple of issues that, when I looked at the report, and I agree with the...
Can you talk a little better to the mic?
I'm sorry. I agree with everything that's in the report. I do have a couple of questions, only as it relates to the interest that is earned on the monies that are mandatorily set aside as the reserve. Currently, or as proposed, that interest earning, and I talked briefly with Emily before the meeting, we estimated at about $40,000 a year That'd be for over about a 20-year period, is that correct?
Correct.
It's proposed to go into the operations fund. Right now, we're just into operations. The monies, which, I guess that's one method you could use those funds, but you could also set it aside for debt service. Since it's interest that's generated off of the bonds that are, borrowed from the state, it would serve a direct benefit in reducing the bond debt by whatever, $800,000 or whatever it would be over the term of the bond. The other concern that I would have if it went into operations is if, and this may not be significant, but you would have an ongoing amount of $40,000 a year. At some point, that's going to stop. So whatever it was funding, your fund source evaporates once the bonds are paid off. So, I don't feel real strongly, but I think that it deserves some discussion of council as an alternative to just putting it back into operations. So that was my spiel, and I believe there's a member of the public that'd like to speak.
I'll let them speak first.
Do we have a speaker sheet?
Yes. Well, yes, he did. I'm sorry, he gave it to me.
I'm sorry. Hi, Council. Number one, you can't do that. And let me read why you can't do that. Prop 218, it goes down, revenues derived from the fee or charges shall not be used for any purpose other than for which the fee or charge was imposed. So that's the revenue from those fees and charges. So you can't do it. You have to leave it in the fund itself. And I'm understanding that you're going to separate that debt service out of the sewer fund, correct?
That's incorrect. The money will still belong to the sewer fund, and the interest earned on the money will still belong to the sewer fund and be used for sewer fund expenses, whether or not those expenses are M&O or whether we decide to apply that money to debt service. It's still sewer fund money and will be used for sewer fund purposes.
I'm talking about the bond. The bond, they told me 2 years ago when I asked a question that just like you did on fund number one, upgrade fund one, we separated it out, correct? Of the sewer fund.
I'm not certain.
It stands alone by itself. That's the $11 that we pay.
I'd have to look back at the bill. I don't recall.
On your bill?
Yeah, this one, sewer fund number 2, should be separated out also and not be paid from the fund number 7 because fund number 7 is going to be taxed for the CPI, and we don't want that to happen. That's why we separated the other one out.
Mr. Winkler would like to comment on that.
Yeah, if the council would like us to respond to that, we certainly can. I think Mr. Walters is raising a good historical point in that when the original plant upgrade was established some 8-9 years ago, I believe.
2005.
That there was some concern expressed at the time that we not be escalating debt service as part of a CPI on their sewer bills.
No.
So we've kept that segregated. It's all still in Fund 7, sewer fund, but for billing purposes, when we apply the annual rate CPI, it only gets applied to the operating and maintenance expenses, not the debt service.
Right.
And the way we're currently patterned with the future debt service that is yet to be incurred on the recent improvements, we would anticipate doing the same thing. We would not escalate debt service with the CPI. But the item being looked at today has nothing to do with that. It's a required bond debt service reserve that is required to be in a separate account. And that's what we're attempting to do today.
Well, we're just arguing that the interest from that, because you're going to grow houses, correct? And these houses are going to also pay into the fund. So this $40,000, 3% of whatever it is, could be $40,000 to $48,000 a year, which could be significant in money.
I believe that we can make a decision, or the council can make a decision, that how the interest earnings on the debt service reserve could be used, whether you want to use it put it into the pool for ongoing M&O, or whether you want us to specifically set it aside to contribute towards the debt service payments. really, you could go either way that you want. The way it's currently written is that it would go back into M&O, but it doesn't necessarily have to go back into M&O. We can use it to offset debt payments, and it's really up to you.
So one more thing. Now, when you put it into that pooled account, you have a cost allocation plan. And I've talked to you many times about that's illegal as far as I'm concerned. When this interest, the way you're going, if that interest goes into that fund, and once that money goes into the general fund, you have no idea knowing what it's.
That money is not going into the general fund. It
Well,
will
you
still
don't-
be in the sewer fund.
But you do not know that because you deduct so much money, $39,000 or $40,000 a month, out of that pool of funds that goes into the general fund. This potentially could be that.
Well,
You have no idea of knowing that once it goes in a general fund, what it's going to be used for. It could be used for police, and you can't use it for police.
No, let's not confuse pooled cash with the pooled funds, because we are not pooling funds. We're pooling cash in that we have one bank account, but we know which fund has how much money in that pool. So we're not going to say, we're not going to use sewer fund money for general fund. It's not going to cross over. We look at our pooled funds and we identify them specifically by fund. And if I may, Council, just to go back to the question of abatements, I'd like to just speak for a moment on, as you'll recall, we began a cost allocation study. We're in the process of that. We've run into a few hiccups on it, but we are planning to bring it back to you sometime in the next month or two. So we will be updating the methodology on that.
Here's a court case, and Prop 218 applies to water rate increases. And just to let you know that the Howard Jarvis Tax Association claimed that the fee was not required to provide the property-related service and therefore exceeded the cost of such a service. That was point number one. Point number two, Howard Jarvis claimed that the revenues derived from the fee were used for a purpose other than that for which the fee or charge was imposed. This is the Taxpayers Association versus the City of Fresno, and the Howard Jarvis Tax Association won that lawsuit. So when you start doing this kind of stuff, be really mindful of the duties and laws that you were hired to take care of.
Yes, sir, I'm extraordinarily mindful of those. I take my fiduciary responsibility very seriously.
Well, to me, it doesn't look like it when you put this on the consent calendar and we have to pull it so we can have a discussion about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Are you okay with anybody else have anything to add?
I actually agree with the idea of putting the interest back into the debt service. It just makes sense.
I agree. I mean,
Well, it doesn't make sense if you don't have some spare change if something comes up.
if it's generated out of, if it's the interest off of the debt service, then it should go back to pay the debt service. I mean, it's kind of logical to me, so I would, support that.
I don't have any objection to that at all. If we did do that, we would need to change one of the phrases in the resolution.
If I may, Mayor, I think it could be phrased so that it would go to the debt service possibly as a priority, and then if it's not needed, she's correct that we'd need to revise the resolution, but you may, as you noted, if there's certain parameters you want to put on it or leave some leeway for staff to adjust as necessary. The Speaker, Mr. Walters, was correct that Prop 218 doesn't allow you to move the sewer funds to the general fund, but as Ms. Boyd pointed out, that's not what is happening. Mm-hmm. The Fresno case involved an in lieu tax, which is a different type of fee.
Well, I personally think we should do maybe half and half or something, pay down the debt, but keep a little spare change in case we need it for something. That's my thought.
Well, my concern there is that then it goes into the operating budget, and it over time it gets kind of lost as to what's the source of this revenue until it's gone. Now at that point it's not going to be, I don't know how significant it's going to be, but I think that the ratepayer sees a direct benefit by having the interest go back to debt service. I think there's more of a correlation there. I mean, I would think that would be the best method as well. So.
I agree.
Well, I don't see how it's going to get muddied. I mean, people keep an eye on where the funds are going. I mean, it doesn't.
Well, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Kurt, but what, I understand what you're trying to say with this is, whether we use all of it or half of it, at some point, those funds are going to cease to exist.
Correct.
And at that point, now what do we do?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
What is it specifically, what was it funding, and how is it going to directly affect the operating budget of the sewer and wastewater?
Right. That's why if you use it for the debt service, then you don't have that issue.
Well, as a ratepayer, I just think that
The
if it's
ratepayer gets the
interest
benefit.
that's, yeah, I think there's a benefit to the ratepayer, and it makes sense for me that it would go back to service the debt and not go into M&O.
You
So
need
do
a
we need
motion on that, or?
Do we need a motion, or?
You can do a motion to adopt the resolution with the modification that the interest would go to the debt reserve instead of the ongoing operations.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Campion, second by Hewer. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. Vote passes 4-0. All right, where are we at? So do you want to vote on that separately, or just want to put it all together with, we just voted on that, duh. You want to read the other 5, please?
Minutes of the regular meeting of April 4th, 2017. Receive and file warrants for the period ending April 4th, 2017. Capital Improvement Program status update, January 1st through March 31st, 2017. Approval of landscape maintenance agreement for improvements along the East Stockton Boulevard frontage. Item 6, Measure R Citizens Oversight Committee Annual Report.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Move remaining.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Cruz and Hewer. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye, approved 4-0. Okay, so now we're going to go to the Public Works Department, and because we moved up number 3, so are you ready for that, Mr. Winkler?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Item 3 before you today on your discussion calendar is several actions related to construction of the new deep well at the industrial water treatment plant. And the actions that are proposed are to approve a budget adjustment to allow award of the construction contract. We're asking for a supplemental appropriation in the current fiscal year of $784,937. That's within Fund 7, the sewer fund, which is paying, this is an arsenic reduction project. We're asking that you, secondly, authorize the city manager to execute a construction contract with Stonehouse Drilling and Construction as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, and that award would be in the amount of $868,322, and that you'd also authorize a 10% contract contingency for unforeseen conditions that may occur during construction, and that you authorize change orders within that project contingency be executed by the city manager. Lastly, we're asking that you approve the filing of a categorical exemption for the project and payment of filing fees, and authorize the Director of Public Works to accept the improvements and issue a notice of completion upon satisfactory completion of the work. Be happy to answer any questions you may have, and staff are here as well.
I think that's the shortest report you've ever given. We're kind of stalling for time a little, but okay. Did you have something you want to say?
Yeah.
Councilmember Cruz?
Quick question. So this is going to be the second deep water well we're going to be using for our system, correct?
This would be the second deep water well for the city of Galt.
And the site you're quoting is going to be used is the one over near Cardinal Glass.
Yes, it's west of there, yes.
Okay, I just have one concern, and it's probably just being,
Concerned.
we're it's on the west side of the tracks, correct?
It's immediately east of the tracks.
East of the tracks, sorry. I just have a serious issue with the fact that we're dealing with petroleum by rail and other toxics by rail so close to our water source. Will there be any issue with it if something like that were to occur?
From a water contamination, water quality standpoint, I believe the risk would be fairly minimal. We'll be pulling water from approximately 1,000 feet deep, so any surface contamination that could occur would be obstructed by concrete casings in the well. Probably the biggest exposure would be some catastrophic derailment, which would damage surface equipment, which would take us out of commission for a period of time. We face that risk with the well that's there today, so there's really no increased risk. It is the location that is most cost effective in that we have the room, we have a test well that has come back satisfactory, and we have the other water treatment equipment for iron and manganese already at the plant, so we wouldn't have to reinvest in that. So this is how that plant was selected, or that site.
I mean, I'm all for the deep water well. It just makes me nervous. I mean, we've already had 2 derailments. We've been very blessed they weren't in town.
We are set back a reasonable distance. That doesn't mean that a high-speed train couldn't cause a situation that would be a problem, but it would be a little unusual.
Thank you.
Council, anything else?
When do we anticipate drilling?
The test hole was done and completed. The next order of work would be to commence on the production well, and I would expect work would start within 45 days or so to get all the contract documents in place.
And completed by, I mean, to be online, how soon are we anticipating bringing that well online?
Next spring.
Next spring, a year? Okay. Good, thank you.
One last question. The ultimate goal being to shut the shallow wells down?
Yes, this is actually a first phase to get the production well in and fully tested. There will be a second phase, which will be to upgrade some of the plumbing and treatment works at the industrial site to accommodate the new well, which will likely have a different production volume than the existing well did. Then we would decommission the existing well, and also as part of Phase 2, we'd be looking to decommission another well site that's out of service, remove the old equipment, and basically scrub the site from an unsightly rusting set of tanks that are out there. So we'll be bringing those back to you for further consideration.
And reducing the amount of arsenic and manganese and such as well.
We'd be replacing relatively high arsenic wells with a extremely low arsenic well.
Awesome.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Councilmember Hewer and Vice Mayor Cruz, call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Yes.
Mayor Powers?
Aye, approved 4-0. Okay, now we're on the amendment to city management employment agreement for 5% salary increase. Kimberly?
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We are proposing a First Amendment to the City Manager's Employment Agreement. It proposes a 5% increase to the city manager's base salary. Mr. Palazzo began working for the city in February of last year. The proposed 5% base salary increase would be retroactive, though, only to March 1st, 2017 of this year. The proposed increase would result in a base salary increase, an annual salary increase of just under $8,000 per year. Including salary-driven benefits, the increase would be just almost $10,500 per year. So we are asking for a First Amendment to the agreement and authorization for the mayor to sign the First Amendment to the employment agreement. There are no further changes to the employment agreement.
Any questions, comments, anything? Okay, do I have a motion?
I just want the community to be aware that we did complete a performance evaluation of the city manager at the last council meeting in our last closed session. So we did complete a performance evaluation at that time.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second?
Second.
Hewer and Campion, call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Mayor Powers?
Aye. Vote passed 4-0. Okay, now we're at City of Galt event sponsorship policy and special event approval for fiscal year.
Hello again, and Monica's also volunteered to do this for me again. Please understand that I put together this presentation that I was giving the presentation, so don't shoot the messenger, I'm the messenger.
But he does have a microphone. So, special events ahead. Okay, so we have the City of Galt special event sponsorship policy. The purpose of that is We recognize that sponsorships play an important role in our community. They are important to us. The purpose is also establishing the guidelines and criteria in granting the City of Galt funds or in-kind services, the procedures that we need to follow when people come to us asking for sponsorships. Our objectives for the event sponsorship policy: we want to streamline the approval process for everyone. We want to ensure the special events promotes the City of Galt as a desirable place to live, visit, and do business. And we want to make sure that all the events align with the city's strategic plan, vision, and mission statements. The requirements for this policy: all applications would be accepted from the first Monday in February through the third Thursday of March. This would allow us to get through the applications, make decisions, and get them into the budget. Applicants must be registered local nonprofit corporation or local 501c organization. The sponsorship requests to be no more than 50% of the program operations budget, up to $3,000, unless the City Council approves a higher sponsorship amount when it sets the budget for the special event sponsorship program. The event and promotion must take place within the city limits. Some exceptions will be made. Sponsorship approvals are made on an annual basis and should be considered one time. So every year you would be reapplying for your sponsorship for your event. We have some exclusions, and they are any event that's initiated by the city. So we have our Winter Bird Festival, Independence Day celebration, and Lighting of the Night event. Those are our events that we put on every year. Approval process: the initial review by the city manager or his or her designee, Mr. Solis. City manager makes recommendations to City Council, and City Council has the final approval. Are there any questions regarding the policy itself?
I have a question on item number 5. It says sponsorship requests to be no more than 50% of program/event operations budget, up to $3,000 unless approved by the City Council. Is this 50% of the program promoter, or 50? We're
50%. The intent is 50% of their M&O budget for the event.
That
Okay.
appears to- Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I didn't know that do we get budgets submitted on all of these then?
We will be requiring them now to submit a budget to us. Make sure they're in compliance with that.
I see. Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to say that to me, that's, I don't like that one at all, because they're trying to build up their event. So if, let's say, I can put some numbers, but let's say if it cost them $4,800 to do the event, and we're only going to give them 24, and so they've has to come up with the other 24, and they only come up with 2,000 at the end. Then for the next year, they're going to kind of be behind. And the purpose of having some of these events is so you can start building your coffer, so finally you don't have to really ask for anything. But if we go to 50% in the beginning with a lot of these, that's a lot of money to start off with, in my opinion.
Basically, what I did with this policy is I looked throughout other cities to see what, and I stole the best parts of everybody else's policy and put it into ours, thinking that this would fit our program. A lot of talk has come out of the $3,000 level that was set forth. I put that in there at a talking point because the majority of the dollar amounts that I saw were between $3,000 and $5,000. So I figured $3,000 would be a reasonable number to start at. Obviously, you guys could change the 50% and just say up to. You guys could move that number of 3,000, but that was in there basically because that's kind of what everybody else was doing.
What cities did you look into?
I know you were going to ask me. I know there were some down south. There were some in Texas.
Were they, I'm sorry, were they like little cities like us?
I couldn't tell you. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Okay, I mean, I could see if you compare it with a bigger city that's got a lot of bucks, that would be kind of
Or
hard
some of the
pressed.
cities in Texas, I didn't go, oh, I know that town. I mean, it.
Yeah, right.
So
Okay.
and please understand that we're just talking about the policy at this point. We'll be reviewing the events when we're done talking and taking questions about the policy.
So we don't have, do you have any of the budgets submitted for these events so far this year?
No, they are not required until 45 days before the event per the policy, if adopted.
So this was last year's costs.
These were, I went off staff reports from last year. We met with PD to make sure all the costs were added to the upcoming events. So those are the numbers that we anticipate for 2017-18.
When do you anticipate council? So if they have to have it in by the third Thursday in March, okay, and then do you anticipate it coming before council for approval of all of them, or
We would
prior to
taking
the
direction
budget?
on which ones you'd like to be added to the budget. We'd put them in the budget, and then we'd bring it forth as part of the budget process.
Okay, so when we're approving it to be part of the budget process, we wouldn't know what their budget is until, so we would
Correct.
not receive their budget at the time in which we were making the approval. We still would be going without knowing whether or not the events were generating funds or not generating funds, or whether they're successful or not successful.
Correct. We would be budgeting the number. If they didn't, if they asked for, if it stayed at 50% up to 3,000 and they didn't spend the money, we wouldn't give them the money. If they only spent 4,000, we'd give them 2,000 with this policy, but we had budgeted for 3. That money would go back into the general fund or wherever we decided to take that money from.
So when you looked at the policy, did you look at the difference between events that were a one-day event versus events that are a 3-day event versus, half-day events, or
They didn't distinguish.
you didn't distinguish
They
between?
didn't,
They didn't.
that I saw.
Because I guess that's kind of my question, is that obviously an event that's a multi-day event is going to incur higher costs than an event that's a one-day event, but it appears by the policy that we would be giving the same amount of money, that we would be providing sponsorship in the same amount, whether or not it's a half-day or whether or not it's a 3-day or a, so I guess that was one of my concerns about the policy, is that I think that in some ways there needs to be some sort of parameters on looking at the size of the event, because obviously something like, and just as an example, something like the Strawberry Festival is going to require a lot more law enforcement and incur a lot more costs, because in fact it's a 3-day event, as compared to an event like a run or something that's a half-day event. So I guess I would be looking for something in the policy that differentiates between the length of the event or the size of the event, because obviously events that are regional events that are advertising regionally, are going to bring in more visitors, one. I mean, if that's what our goal is with the sponsorship, as compared to events that are just for local events. So I guess that's kind of where I look at it, that we need, I guess I'd like to see something in the policy that,
Acknowledges or recognizes the differences.
yeah.
And what the value to the city,
Well, it's always going to be hard for us to value what the value to the city is. I mean, I think that's always going to be hard for us, don't you? But at least the size of the event, and I mean, events that are advertising regionally or,
Right. But some events
obviously are
will-
going to have some bigger benefit to us and some larger costs.
And if
to
they
the
last,
organization.
by value, I meant, if they last longer, people are staying maybe the night and people are going down and checking out the shops and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's important, and we really did discuss that last time, that I didn't think far enough into all of that, and it's really important to realize the value to our businesses and to
And the promotion of the
establishing-
city.
Right, right.
So I guess that's just in reference to the policy. I guess do I have a direction or is a no?
Well,
but it's just something that, when I read
on
it,
the
it
first
just-
page, on the first page of the policy, the last paragraph, the granting of city funds or in-kind support is evaluated according to the effectiveness and an impact to the particular special event, community project, or program. So something's in there that you can take into account for that when you're looking at a 3-day event. And then on number 5, it also talks about that the sponsorship amount could be set higher by council.
Yeah,
So that is a factor. Both of them are in there that you can look at that to see if it's a 3-day event and say, no, we want to, this event's going to bring people in 3 days versus a half a day. And you could establish that through, I believe, through this verbiage.
I think what I would like to see, though, is have staff develop something that takes that into consideration, so that you have a schedule of what the costs are going to be, so that we're not debating this every time a special event comes up. I think that was kind of what I would like to see come of this, rather than trying
Maybe
to
something
determine
in
on
the
a case-by-case
policy
basis.
that says a one-day event up to this amount, a multi-day event up to this amount, or something that actually spells that out so that people understand. So the people that are doing events, the organizations that are doing events, have some understanding of that.
We can look at it. I think it might be a little difficult because it all depends on where the event is, the time of day event, how many people they expect to draw. You know, you could have an event that's going to have 100 people, and then you could have the same size event, same block that would have 1,000 people. I mean, we're going to have a Jump for Diabetes event on May 20th at Community Park that's anticipated to bring 250 people in. But you have National Night Out, same park, same venue, you have 1,000 people there. So it's kind of, it'll be difficult to judge that. You would have to take it on a case-by-case basis, depending on what they're asking for, when it comes to evaluating each event.
I think that's going to be the truth. It's going to be, every one of these is going to be looked at separately.
You would have to, and
you
it'd
can't
be
bundle
very
them all
difficult to
into-
put them, to box them in together. I believe it would be difficult. We could give it a shot. We could put something together for you if you'd like. I think, again, this allows us to look at each event differently.
Yeah.
And it doesn't put us in that box where you have to fit in this box to get this price.
So there's nothing in the policy about any sort of follow-up after the event, which I guess has always been a little bit of my concern also about following the event, whether or not there's a report back to the city as a sponsorship that says, you know, just like you did today with the Bird Festival, what was the revenue? I mean, there's always the difference between events that are charging an admission fee and events that are solely free to the community. So I guess, you know, or events that happen year after year that we have some sort of reference to, you know, and we, as we all know, we just face that with the Bird Festival. There's going to be good ups and down years, but over a period of time, I mean, events that have been going on for 5+ years, 10 years, I mean, they have a pretty good track record and a pretty good idea of what their revenue is. I guess I'd like to see something that there is some sort of either, if they apply the following year, that they show how they did the year before. I mean, I think it's transparency to the taxpayers' money. I mean, that's my big concern. It's not the events, because I think events have a benefit to our community. But I think taxpayers have a right to know how the money was spent and whether or not these organizations are generating funds that would allow them for it to be cost neutral to the city instead of it requiring a sponsorship. Because there's going to come a point when we're only going to have a certain amount of money to put aside for this. I mean, we can't keep incurring increased costs. on events, so.
I believe we could easily add that to the policy. I think we currently require the organizations that apply for the community grant to provide some type of documentation. I don't see why we couldn't follow that and adding that to this policy.
I think some of them already have done that, though, with some of these events we've had here, haven't they? Because I think when it was brought up a while back.
I think
people
the
had-
Heritage Festival is the only one I remember seeing, but, I mean, if we were just talking about an event, I don't,
Sorry, I don't remember.
yeah, but I just think it may be something that we could add to the policy, but I mean, it's how the council feels about it. But that's just when I read it, those are some of my concerns.
I've always agreed on that one with you. I think you need to, if we're sponsoring you, you need to show us what you're doing with the stuff.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Council direct staff to, we can add that to this policy.
Public comment, or?
Did someone want to follow up with that, or I was going to move on to something else, but I'm sorry.
Well, right now, I just want to double check something. We're working on the first phase of this right now, number 1, not number 2, correct? We're just setting up the policy. We haven't dealt with the 9 units and 9 groups.
This is, what I want to do is talk about the policy, establish the policy, and if we do adopt this policy, I'll show you how it would impact the nine events that we've brought forward.
Okay, because based on what I'm seeing in your policy, is that working? It looks like you've got a cap of $9,000 on the events. Is that correct? Or sorry, $3,000
yeah.
on the events.
That's according to
$9,000
the
would be nice.
current. That's according to the current policy.
Okay.
Obviously, if you change it, it would change the staff report and those numbers.
I don't know. All of the events that you've got listed here, plus one that's missing, have a huge draw to this community, and they have a strong sense of what this community is about. I mean, it attracts people here. We draw people from other communities to live here because of the sense of family and the sense of community we have. I just don't want to see anything lost. And to be honest with you, I'd like to see that cap moved up to at least 5,000. I know I'm probably the minority here in the group, but I'd like to see it at least that high.
Well, I think where it gets kind of sticky is this 50% stuff. So I'm not happy with the 50%. I mean, if it's costing, or maybe I'm reading it wrong. So tell me if I am. Let's say I'm just going to take the first one, the Chamber food truck. If it costs them $3,380, we're only going to give them 50% of that.
No, that was, isn't the total event cost what we've been doing historically?
We've been doing the whole cost of the event.
But
We
now
didn't
it says
require
50.
50%.
But now on this thing, it says 50%.
It depends on how much their costs are. They would have to show a budget showing exactly what the costs are.
We've never seen that.
Well, but that's what I'm asking. If all of a sudden now they're saying, okay, it costs $3,380 for the food truck, we're only going to give them 50% of what it costs?
No.
Up to $3,000. Easily removed. It's something that I saw that might benefit.
Yeah, I think that just adds a whole new layer of craziness to it. I think we need to see what it costs. And for a lot of these, if we brought it up to $5,000, we could kind of pay for most of them, and they could continue to thrive and grow.
Well,
That's my thought.
I think what you're looking at there, Mayor, is the 3,380 is what historically it has cost the city. That is these are all city costs.
Oh, it's not the cost.
No.
So we don't
Those are
know
just
what
our
the
city
total
costs.
cost. Well, it says okay. We don't know what a total cost of the event would be for. Let's just say they say it costs us $5,000. So we say we're only going to give you $2,500 in this rule.
Under this draft,
Okay.
yes, it would.
I want that rule gone because I think that I don't like that one. That's just me.
Well, I have a question that relates to that because it relates to the city's direct costs. And that is it necessary or required that we use police officers now for security? And I understand if you're doing road closures, you're going to want, on some of these runs, that makes complete sense. But like the Strawberry Festival, we have, 5, 6 officers, almost 40 hours of time. And that is the lion's share of the city's costs. I mean, it's at least 50%. I mean, is there a reason that they don't employ their own security? I mean, that's.
Well, the Strawberry Festival did supply their own security, didn't they?
I've spoken to representatives from the Strawberry Festival, and they have supplied security officers in the past. Their statement would be that they would be removing those officers if police officers were going to be on site.
Why would we institute the police officers if we can require them to provide their own security? I mean, that doesn't make sense. I mean, I think security would be cheaper than what our police officers are charged.
And their security's there all night. For the Strawberry Festival, they're there all day and all night, so.
So where did these numbers come from, Armando? Is this based on last year?
These are hours that were brought forward by PD for each event.
So this is based on last year,
No, we
the
do
most
not.
recent event, or
We
what?
did not require them to do this last year. The chief will be asking that we have officers at all events, including the Heritage Festival, the Strawberry Festival. Help me out here, Chief. I don't know what other ones that required.
So whenever we bring a bunch of people into a specific area for an event, you need to provide adequate safety for those folks that are coming in. When I first got here, the first thing I noticed is that we can't adequately do that with the on-duty staff that we have. So bringing in officers, at a minimum of 2 officers for an event that's in an area that's fenced, and then the other events that occur in the city, like the runs, half marathons, 5Ks, and those kind of things where there's road closures and all types of other issues when people are running in the street, it requires more personnel. And so separate from those that are inside of a fenced-in area, those are out. We try to staff, we have to have people that are trained in traffic control. And so we try to staff them as much as we can with our caps. They're all volunteers, and sometimes we're successful and sometimes we're not. They always step up and they do whatever they can to make those events successful. But sometimes they have plans of their own and they can't come out, so we have to use officers. So we just try to make sure that we have adequate coverage for the event itself, minimally having 2 officers out there. If in the event that there is security out at these specific events hired by the event, people that are hosting the event, and they are approved by us, that they are a security company that is can handle if in the event that there's crowd management necessary, if there's some sort of issue where people start to run and they have one exit to get out of, how are they going to control that issue? Or in the event that we have somebody that's intoxicated or like as of recent at the food truck event where we have somebody that's taking too many drugs and causing havoc at that event, how are they going to deal with that person? So we need to make sure we vet those folks, the security agencies, properly so that we can make sure it's a safe event for everybody attending.
Mm-hmm.
That's my explanation. So right now, we provide 2 officers. If the event coordinators have a security company they want to use, we'd be happy to entertain that and talk to them about that.
Do we require police officers? Are you saying we would be requiring police officers for all events that occur at Shimola on weekends and so forth then?
No.
Well,
no, we don't.
You've got 200-300 people there, and you're not going to require it, but in other cases you would?
I'm sorry, we do require either security officers. They have the option to rent Galt PD officers.
Or I guess my answer was no, we don't provide them because we haven't had to because they have their own security.
Okay.
And this might be a little off-key, but I don't want it to get lost in the shuffle, because I know that CERT comes a lot and volunteers at some of these to be there for first aid. And we're not giving them any money, and I don't think that's right. So I don't know where that has to come along, but when I was thinking about it, when I saw them at Extravaganza, we used to give them a pittance every year for doing that service for us, and we don't do it anymore. So I want to make sure that, we're talking about security and police and all that. We've got somebody there that I think deserves to be tied in with making it even a line item budget, which is off the course, I'm understanding, but I just want to make sure that it's put in there, that somebody remembers that they're there all the time.
I think the interesting thing about when we're talking about security is the example I'll use is at the Strawberry Festival last year. There were officers there. There were folks that came in that decided that they were going to cause problems. They saw the officers walking up. They made eye contact, realized that the cops were there, and they turned around and left. It was obvious what they intended to do based on the officers' observations, but the fact that the cops were there, they did not. So
It's a deterrent.
it's a great deterrent. The other thing is at the Strawberry Festival, which I thought was really interesting, is there was a lost young boy there wandering aimlessly, and parents couldn't find him. And it was the officers that found him. And so they do a great service out there, providing that level of oversight, the eyes, the trained eye, to see what is and isn't going on. So I think that the police officers themselves pay for themselves when they're out there to make sure it's a safe event, and that we make the news for positive and not something negative that happened at the event.
Well, my concern always is that if something happens and a security, they have paid security, but if they have to call for law enforcement, which they generally do, I mean, that's kind of what they do, they call for law enforcement backup, and the law enforcement responds, that takes them away from responding to the rest of the community. So because we just don't have, because of the number of on-duty officers being, so if they're responding to an event, then they're not being able to respond to citizens in the community that.
Well, and to put that in perspective, if there's an accident in our city
Yeah.
at an intersection, that will be the staff at the department handling that accident. And if something were to happen at an event, there won't be any officers available to respond. Now, they could clear, hold the scene at the accident, and then go once they know it's safe. But that's the nature of the business. And so having dedicated officers, such as the Tiny Smiles Run, when we had a suspicious device at the store, had we not divided those two up and we used on-duty personnel, then no one would have been at the run, because that suspicious device would have been higher priority than the run itself. And so the running would either been stopped or we can hope for the best. And so that's why we had the two separate, and it paid for itself in that event also.
Okay, council, anything else before we get to the public?
Yeah, I'd like to hear public comment.
Okay, because we got quite a few.
I'm sorry, I still have
Oh.
more presentation.
Oh, okay.
This is just regarding the policy. Do we have direction from council on how you'd like us to proceed? Or would you like us just to keep going with the events that we're recommending to be included in the budget?
Well, I'd like to hear public comment before we give direction, because it might.
Would you like to see the events that we're recommending to be included? Or would you like us just to stop at this point and move forward?
Well, it's in the report, right?
All the information that we'll be going over is in the report.
Do you want to, council, do you want to see the list first?
You can
or-
pop them up there.
Yeah, pop them up.
These are the costs of the event.
The cost of the city.
This is the city's
The city's
cost.
costs currently.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
The things that the school districts do they participate in any funding for these things?
They have not,
Okay.
that I'm aware of. I'm unsure of the 15-minute event.
I believe they get grants and things to cover some of that.
Do they?
And they get donations. The victims spend the night at the local hotel, and I believe the local hotel donates the rooms, and there's some other things that CHP donates.
Yeah, okay, it's only one.
But they do no reimbursement of the city cost.
Say that again.
They do no reimbursement of the city cost.
Right.
Now, these are the costs for the events that we've identified
We need to look
by
at it.
personnel, soft, hard, and actual costs for supplies. Under the proposed policy of the $3,000 maximum, this would be the impact to each line item. Proposed. And then we would be, go ahead and next slide, Monica. The recommendation in the packet would be to adopt the resolution establishing the policy and then sponsor the 9 reoccurring special events for the amount listed below the proposed special event sponsorship policy for fiscal year 17-18.
Okay.
So,
Will it, is there more? Oh.
so remember that was my.
That was your. Okay.
That's how I felt when I was done with this.
Let's see it again. Come on. Okay, so thank you very much, Monica.
I just have a question for Emily. Is there currently anything in the budget for these events, for this?
Not specifically. What we're doing is planning to put it into the 17-18 budget as a separate program event so that you can see what revenues are and expenses are generated, so we can identify this separately moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
But these are also monies we've expended in the past, correct?
Yes, we have, but we haven't identified them specifically as events. For example, the police overtime is in the police overtime budget.
Oh, okay.
Armando's costs are in Parks and Rec and so forth. So they've not been specifically identified except to, or in the general ledger in the financial reporting. They've been identified and staff has sat down and said how many hours are we spending on this and what were our hard costs and so forth.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with Gail Weber.
Hello, how are you? I have to admit, when I first saw this policy, I was a little angry. I kind of saw it as a failure of the city to value the special events that we do as volunteers and that the volunteer hours were never even counted into this. I've since talked to Armando and other people, and I've calmed down. So I understand that the events that are listed here are actually events that the city does value, and that this policy is just a way to streamline this whole thing for everyone involved. Most of the events that are listed are not fundraisers for any particular organization. They are events that are designed to enhance our quality of life and to bring a benefit to the people that live here in the community, and to encourage those that live here to come and for others to visit. I question some of the costs associated to these events, and my understanding is that the soft costs are for like employees that are already working, but they contribute something to the event, whether they process the paperwork or make sure a list of certain items has to be taken to the event, and that the hard costs are actually employees that are actually assigned to the event, such as the police staff or other one-time costs. While I appreciate the accounting for these costs, I don't believe that the soft costs should have to be paid for by the event. The venue rental fees that are on some of these costs are not an actual cost to the city. They are a lost income, but that income may have never happened even if we didn't use the event if no one else rented it. So it's kind of like, why should we have to pay? Why should we be subjected to the cost of the $2,000 rental fee for a venue that venue wouldn't have ever been rented anyway? So I don't see how that's a cost to the actual event. Galt received $244,000 in TOT money in 2016. This was a direct result of tourism, people staying in our hotels and motels. 100% of these monies are put into the general fund. Why isn't the city reinvesting a portion of these directly back into tourism? The amount of sponsorship recommended in this resolution is less than 10% of the TOT monies. I think that's a discussion that needs to be had. My suggestion on that number 5, on the general requirements and eligibility, was that the sponsorship request to be no more than $5,000 unless the City Council approves a higher sponsorship amount. That would cover those soft and hard costs. Forcing these events to cover these costs puts some of them on the endangered list or at best stagnant with no capital to grow the event in the future. But the actual event's operation budget should have no bearing on the city's sponsorship. The events I am involved with, their operation budgets basically cover the cost of putting on the event with little or no wiggle room. In case of the extravaganza, the event I am most involved with, our revenue was $3,680. Our expenses were $3,885, which leaves us with about a $1,200 loss. If we had to pay $1,800 to hold this event in 2018, I fear the extravaganza and other shop local events would not be held. City sponsorship of these events should be a part of the cost of doing business by the city. Community events are an investment in our great American little town, and I urge the City Council to consider the quality of life benefit these events bring to the community, and the return on this type of investment cannot always be measured in dollars. I also have a short letter that Pastor Rick asked me to read, if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. This is from him. It says, "Good day. I pray these finds you well. It is my goal to keep this short. I apologize for my absence, but I am currently scheduled to work graveyards, so daytime meetings have become increasingly difficult for me to attend. I do need it to be known in advance that I am incredibly grateful for the City of Galt for its support of the Tiny Smiles, Tiny Half Marathon. The city has been an integral part of the success we have been able to see. Please read the following letter knowing that you are appreciated. Thank you for putting the Tiny Half Marathon in the proposed special event sponsorship policy. What a blessing it is to us that, at least in general, the leadership in Galt sees the value in what we are doing for the city. And although I am thankful, I do believe that the city is falling short in helping not only us, but other nonprofit groups that are making a positive impact for our community. I love being able to show off our community. The Tiny Half Marathon brings in people from all over the country and attracts attention worldwide. There is no question that the Tiny Half Marathon and several other events directly contribute to these taxes. The city receives monies from the hotel taxes it collects. These monies, in my opinion, should be used to bring in more people to Galt. There are few better ways to bring people into our community than to use existing events. We have proven our value and commitment. My team alone represents approximately 2,000 volunteer hours for the race alone. Our city is built on more than just dollars. We are also built on the backs of people that love people. The budget alone cannot be the sole focus. I ask that the leadership of Galt reconsider the existing proposal. I would ask that the city consider fully supporting these groups that have, as part of their overall goals, an intention to bring visitors into our fine town. Thank you for your time. Blessings, Pastor Rick."
Thanks, Gail.
Thank you.
Barbara Payne?
I really am retired, even though I seem to be here. I want to speak to the Galt Heritage Festival specifically, but in the presentation, I did have a couple of questions, if it'd be okay to ask them. Are you now requiring a police officer to be like at the Heritage Festival? Is that a new requirement?
For the Heritage Festival, there's 2 officers assigned to it.
That we would have to pay for? Correct.
Well, currently, we're using our overtime fund to pay for it. So, but yes, we have 2 officers that are out there on overtime.
So that would go as an expense that the festival would need to cover? That we're planning the Heritage Festival right now, so I need to know if we can even afford to do it. And if we're going to add the cost of 2 police officers, I need to know that.
But I believe that's the discussion that we're having with this new policy and with the direction of council. So who's paying for that?
It's a possibility.
I can only tell you that there's going to be 2 officers out there because my job as a police chief is to make sure everybody has a safe event and that they can be there comfortably knowing that there's somebody watching out to make sure that the event goes smoothly and there is no problems.
And I certainly appreciate your concern. I just need to know. The other question I had when you were making the presentation is if other groups want to have an event, I'm not talking about the Heritage Festival, but I'm talking about your policy. So they apply to you, and then it goes to the city manager, and then do they all, each one, go to the council to look at and approve, or does it stop somewhere along the line?
The process will be they would submit the application with all information. We would review it to make sure that it is in accordance with the policy. At that point, we would discuss it with the city manager during budget process and then put it on the agenda for council to review.
And if an organization, say, has a question or disagrees, would that occur at the approval of the budget? because that's the ultimate time, the way I understand it, that these events are approved, will be when the budget is approved.
That will be the final official. We do have budget workshops that we would be discussing this through.
So all of these organizations could show up at the budget workshops to plead their case or whatever before they have a final approval. Is
Yes.
that the way it would go?
Yes, there are public meetings, and we would notify them when it would be on the agenda.
Okay. I know what those budget meetings are like, and I know they're not going to welcome having a lot of organizations come and plead their case, but I just wanted to be sure that that was the way this is being written. Thank you. As far as the Galt Heritage Festival is concerned, I certainly understand the need for the budget and establishing a process, and I appreciate all the time and effort that has been put into that. And this is just something that is always going to be out there. In accounting, you have a sheet, and it has debits and credits. And what we're focusing on, it seems to me, are the debits, the costs, without being able to look at the credits. I know we are trying to when we say it helps economics by bringing people into the community, in lots of other ways that we are trying to say that it's we're giving credit to the event. I don't think that you can grasp the full picture of what is happening. Previously, they mentioned the volunteer hours that go into these projects, and we could account. In fact, I did take the minimum wage that you were paying a Parks and Recs person, which I think was like $12.95, and multiplied it by the volunteer hours, and city owes us money, jokingly, of course. So my concern is that if this is passed, first of all, if you reduce the waiver amount that you're willing to waive to $3,000, the Heritage Festival would, at that point, have a loss of a little over $500. And at the same time, the event, and we go out and get sponsors, and we're fortunate that we've been able to get quite a few sponsors, but we're also competing with some of the events that the city puts on, like the Winter Bird Festival, Independence Day Festival, some of those. So it's really putting more of a burden on the businesses the more we have to ask for sponsorships or money to cover the costs. Many of our donations at the Heritage Festival were by individuals that gave us $50 because they wanted to help out. They're not big businesses or corporations, but they're just people that think that it's a good thing to do. We think that one of the values of the Heritage Festival is it does bring culture to our community, which is something that we have strived to do in the past when we don't have currently any program to bring arts and culture to our community. So we feel like this is another area that it contributes. The only satisfaction that any of us...
Barbara, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up. Your time is up.
I'll just say this and I'll be through. The only satisfaction that any of us get for this is thinking that maybe we're doing something good for the community and that the city of Galt appreciates it. Thank you.
I do want to say one thing. It's called in-kind contributions, and I think that should go on the budget. I think that you need to put on there your volunteer hours and stuff. It can be down on the bottom or whatever. But, doing budgets like that myself all the time, I think it's important to say what you're getting for free.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, may I add something to this regarding the costs for these events? Under our strategic plan, we've identified that we would be evaluating these special events. And under the updates that we would be telling you the full cost of every event. That's why we were doing this. We added soft costs, hard costs, and that's why we've included them in our Independence Day celebration, Lighting of the Night, and Winter Bird Festival. We've provided you those costs for our events also, and that's why we're providing them in this. So, the criteria which you said, whether it be soft costs, hard costs, that would be up to you. But that's what we're providing you the number to look at in whole.
Thank you. Okay, now we've got Deborah Crane. I'm sorry. Oh, you guys together? Kim, okay, Kim, let me see where you are, Kim.
Brooke Beckett.
Brooke? Oh, okay. Brooke Beckett?
Teacher of the Year.
Teacher of the Year.
Hi, my name is Brooke Beckett. I'm one of the engineering and technology teachers from Galt High School, here representing Best Academy. Just to tell you a little bit about what we are, we're probably one of the things on the list that is the least known, so I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about it before you make decisions regarding us. Best Academy stands for Biomedical Engineering, Science, and Technology. So students that aren't necessarily interested in the Ag Academy, we're another option on campus for them. We've been around since 2010 and growing bigger and bigger and more popular with the students, so it's another place for students to feel at home. It's different from just electives or coursework because the students do things beyond the classroom. That's part of what makes it an academy instead of just a course or a pathway where they have courses that build on each other. We have that, but we do more than that. And one of our big things is to give students leadership experiences and work together. To do that, our big fundraiser that our students came up with is holding an annual 5K event. We have biomedical students, engineering students, and technology students, and it's very difficult to find an event that they would like to work together on. So we've got our engineering students that kind of helped plan the course and where we need people for line of sight, because we have our zombies out on the course. We have our technology students that are helping to run the stopwatches and timers and keep track of all the racers. And we've got our biomedical students who set up a blood pressure station, and they take racers' pulse and stuff before and after the race to kind of show them how they were doing and provide healthy food and stuff like that. So it's really something that our academy kind of brings all of us together. We also think it's a really good community event because we're partially sponsored through the school. Our maintenance and operations funding, we pay for the school for use of their facilities because that's where we're based, in the parking lot on campus. But then we also pay to have officers here, so we're looking for that waiver. We think we're a really good community event because unlike some of the other events on here, we're really geared towards families, but specifically teenagers. I always hear the high schoolers saying there's nothing to do in Galt, which I know isn't true because there's all kinds of great stuff. I live here and I love it. But it's something that the teenagers really take ownership of because they are the volunteers there. They are running it. We have, I think it's 70-something racers last year, but we had well over 100 people present because there's about 30 volunteers, plus people bring their families with them. So even though we charge people to race, there's a lot more people there and running it. Our students plan all of it. They have a great time. They learn a lot, but it really brings in those teenagers, getting them to volunteer and put something together and be responsible. We also gear the event a little towards everyone. When we hand out prizes for first place, it's broken into age brackets. So we've had cute little kids running, and we've had people in the 55-plus group running, and they are so proud when they complete the race and get a first place. Even though there's all these little hot shots going past them, they still got a first in their age bracket. So we'd really try to gear the event towards everyone in the community. I just wanted to let you know who we are. Thank you for your time.
Can I ask you a real
Yes.
quick question?
Any
Because I don't know if I
questions?
heard it right. Did you say you have to pay the school to have? You have to pay the school?
Yeah, that's our other
Well,
waiver that we're looking at and talking.
That's kind of unacceptable to
We've
me.
had this event for 3 years, and this past year we had charges from the city that were waived, thank you, and we had charges from the district that we're also talking about, and their school board is talking about that and how they're going to waive things or not.
So they didn't waive them last year? You paid?
I believe in the end our principal just paid it for us, saying we'll deal with it next year when there's more time, because they told us like a week before the event that we were going to get charged.
That's why I was asking about these three things. I think the school board or the school district could help fund the things that the schools are doing, my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Deborah, you want to come on up now?
Thank you. I'm Deborah Crane. I'm also a teacher at Galt High School in the Best Academy. I want to talk a little bit more about numbers, because that seems to be what all this is coming down to. What we raise at the zombie run, the 5K zombie run every year, is money to pay for things directly for our students. So we pay for the graduation sashes for our students. We pay for field trips for our students. We pay for luncheons where we have for career coach luncheons with our students, where we team up our 11th graders with mentors. So all the money goes back into directly expensing students in the Galt community. So it's all coming back into our students at Galt. Last year, we made $999.50 was what we came away from the race with, and that was based mainly because we had the fees waived here at the city. Things that were donated, the city waived their charge of $567. We had our principal stepped up and paid our site fee of $90. We had our medals. Our bags that we put the T-shirts and things in were sponsored by a local tow company. So when we look at all the money that was donated, had we not had the waivers and the money that was donated, we would have cleared $14.16. And I would rather pull that out of my pocket than spend all the hours we spent to do that. And there were multiple of us doing that to help out. So the waivers that you provide for us are really important to small events like ours. We've grown over the years. We started in 2014. We had 24 runners. In 2015, we had 55 runners, and this past year we had 72 runners. So every year we've been increasing, and we're hoping to become a destination. I know last year there were a lot of families that came from out of the area that they really were pleased to have a big Halloween event that was safe for their children. They liked to dress up, but they weren't big on trick-or-treating. Some of their children were pretty big children and had gotten beyond that trick-or-treat stage, but be able to dress up like zombies and stuff. So it was a really good family, and they brought little kids as well. So it's starting to become known, and it's starting to become an event that we would like to continue, because that $1,000 that we raised was really important for us, even though it's not a huge amount of money. But your waivers are what allow us to keep making that money and keep having money to put back into our bank accounts. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ann Ulrich?
Hello, we thought we'd come up together because we're talking on the same topic. We're both chamber board members, as you well know. So I think my plan was to speak to the two main chamber events that are on the list. One, first of all, is the food truck. And that, right now, we barely, just because all the chamber gets out of that event is running their beer booth. So it just barely covers our costs. And I just don't know if we had to come up with half of that, we wouldn't have the event. So if that ends up being the case, that would just go away. As far as the Strawberry Festival goes, I was here in 2014, and the council at that time waived for that Strawberry Festival and the future Strawberry Festivals the costs. And at that time, the costs were given on the staff report as $1,500. Now, I'm not certain how we got to now $10,677.68, other than, over $5,000 is for the hard costs for the police that we've not been required to have before, and other costs that were gone up to, as far as we were paying now $2,300 in an operations manager from Parks and Rec, where before that was $825, so I'm not sure about that either. But anyway, I feel like this of all of these events is a huge contributor to this community. You're looking at 2.5, almost 3 days of activities that go on. We've spent this year and in years past well over $20,000 in advertising to bring people to the city. And then also we get in.
That's every year,
Yeah,
20,000,
yeah.
not.
Oh,
over
no,
all
every
years.
year. We spend that and I think we probably bring in, I don't know, 20, 30,000 people that would normally not know what a great town we have. So I feel like that's kind of a different type of event.
Yeah, and I just want to comment, a lot of the 20,000 that we do in advertising, that's just our advertising part of our budget, is we get media here, we get newsprint, radio ads. You know, we're saturating the market for a couple weeks before the event, during the event. And we do use the Strawberry Festival also for to help both of our high schools. One we work with on a booth, the other one does a 5K. Then there's also a pancake breakfast, so that we work with them on. So our schools are able to raise money too through this event. So it's not just the chamber. And there are years when temperatures are 104, we don't get a lot of people, or it rains like crazy and we don't get. But that 20-something thousand that we put out there, marketing our community, and another 10, 20,000 we spend on other things like security and supplies and food and things like that that bring a large event together. It might take us a year or two to get that back because that's gone, whether people come in the gates or not. So it's tough. It's tough for us. I think the police, and no offense, I think having to have police officers there is an overkill by a big shot. It's a family community event. We don't stay open late at night. We close around 8 or 9 on Saturday, 5 o'clock on Sunday. We don't have problems there. I mean, I think we've had one event where we've had to call a police officer in that I can remember. And it was just a minor, and I don't want to say what it is because it's kind of embarrassing, but one of our old characters urinated on the grass, and it offended people, which I don't blame them. So that happened. But, our community isn't big like that. We don't have, people getting drunk and carrying on and being obnoxious. It's just not that kind of event. It's families getting together and doing things together in our little town. So I think that's kind of an overkill, and I appreciate our chief wanting to keep us secure and prevent events, but it can be an overkill, and that's a lot of money. That's half of our cost. So I think we've done well with our security that we've hired in the past. I mean, if there's something that has happened that caused something like this, maybe in the future, I would say okay, but it hasn't been a problem. And I think that's about all that.
The only other thing I just wanted to piggyback on was the accountability of the event. We have no problem. We do that at Strawberry Festival anyway, and I would be happy to come back to the meeting after Strawberry Festival and show you what we've made and what we spent and that whole thing, because we do that at our following Strawberry Festival meeting as well. So
and I think as sponsors, you deserve to know.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I agree, 100%. So.
And you guys do give scholarships out to the schools, too. You forgot that part.
Yeah, we do that, too.
We actually have a bunch of applicants. I'm excited.
And the money that we do make, when we do make money on this, because sometimes we do have a good year, but it enables us to put money back into our businesses. I mean, and help with things like egg extravaganza and, lighting of the night we help out with, and a lot of other things that are going on in the community and our businesses downtown and, and all over. So we do Business of the Year. We try to really promote our businesses in the community. So.
Facilitate the business community as well.
Yeah, so that's a lot where our money goes back to. So, but we, that's for another day. We just kind of wanted to tell you what we're about. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Okay, and that's it for our speakers, correct? Correct. So, council, any direction, any more information, anything you'd like to say, add, Bob?
I'd still like to reiterate, I agree with you removing the 50% budget portion of the policy, as well as increasing the ceiling on it to 5,000. But I would amend that to say 5,000 per event per day.
I kind of think that's a good, but, you know, I think that you can't cookie cutter these. I think they're all individual and all, so that's where, to me, to put a basic, this is cut and dried, this is what we're going to do.
Well, it gives us a baseline. I mean, we still have to deal with the 9 that we're going to have every year as well, correct?
Yeah, but if we make it this way, then it's going to be cut in stone, right? And you can't change, we're not going to be able to change it.
There's verbiage in there that says that you can take each event case by case.
That's what I would prefer, each event, case by case. And so you want
Just as a baseline.
a baseline. Any other thoughts?
Well, I appreciate that it would just come back to us one time a year. I think it's requiring a huge amount of staff time and council time with every month, and we do go through the whole thing. So, I mean, a one-time meeting in which we, make decisions, I just think would be more beneficial to the community, and then the events can plan accordingly to what the costs are going to be. I think that when I go through and look at each individual event, if we deducted out the soft costs, because soft costs are pretty much already budgeted for. I'm more concerned about the things that aren't budgeted for, the hard costs. The costs of renting our facilities, waiving the rental fees for our facilities, I think makes sense for events that benefit the community. I think as community members paying, in the budget, those things, staff time and stuff is already budgeted in there. I realize that when staff are working the events, then they're not doing other things, but that's just the give and take of public service. So I guess when I look at these, I'd like to see, I was trying to kind of do it myself, if we took out the soft costs, what are the costs left then? If we had, there are the cost of the event, and then if we minus the soft costs and just added up the hard costs, what would that look like? Because I think that makes a difference. Like the chamber food truck, it's all soft costs. So why would we, looking at this, it was all soft costs for the chamber food trucks, and I think the chamber food trucks, are probably been one of the most beneficial things to bringing people down to Old Town. So, if it's soft costs, why would we want to burden them with more cost for something that truly has been, and it's only been in operation for less than a year. I think it started May or last year or something. So, those are the kind of things that I would look at us not looking at costs of. Events, and I think events that like extravaganza and that are put on to by and large benefit the community, benefit the citizens of the community as compared to regional events. I think a waiver of I like the option of there being open for us to decide the amount. I think $5,000 per day is a pretty excessive amount in my viewpoint. I think that maybe if we had a maximum that we waived on soft costs and a maximum we waived on hard costs, I think that $3,000 of hard costs is absolutely more than enough for us to be waiving on an event. Especially, like I said, some of these events are half-day events as compared to full-day events, and how much we waive on that. If we raise that up to $5,000, now we're going from what it currently costing the citizens $35,000 for events up to, when I kind of added up, looking more like $45,000. So we're going in really the wrong direction, in my opinion, because our facilities need we have deferred maintenance on all these facilities. Everybody says, oh, it's such a small amount. And yes, it's a small amount, but there's really a very small amount left in our budget after all of our employees and all of our benefits and everything else that are left to pay for that. So we look at it being a very small amount that is discretionary for us to use on those kind of things. I absolutely think that, like I said, the chamber, it's a regional event. They're the Strawberry Festival, they're doing a lot to promote our community. I don't think during the couple weeks leading up to it, you can turn on the radio and there's lots of advertising. I think they do a really good job of it. It's kind of a unique event as compared to the others. It ends up running much more like our city-sponsored event. It's a bigger kind of event. So I think there's, a lot of the costs for the chamber were soft costs that I think that we can absorb because they're already covered in our budget. The high school district, I think those are all events that benefit the community. They're fairly small events that benefit, our students and benefit our community. I find it a little distressing that the high school charges and we're not. So I would encourage the high school district to look at that because, we're asking the city to waive the cost to turn around and the district charges their students. Same thing is, I think the homecoming parade is a long tradition. I wouldn't want to see that, us interrupt that. I think that and we have to provide law enforcement. Those are just kind of my thoughts about it. I'd really like to see us separate out hard costs from soft costs. And even though I totally agree that employee time is money, and I know that I've had council members disagree with me on that, I really, really appreciate, Armando, that you gave us an accounting of what's being spent, because I think the community deserves and should know what these events cost them, because ultimately it is the taxpayers that's paying for these events when we waive all these costs. It's not, somebody else. It actually is the people who live in the city of Galt, who are paying the property taxes in the city of Galt. And as for comments regarding the TOT, I think you'd be hard-pressed to know how much TOT those events are generating, because most of these events, people aren't coming and spending the night. People are spending the night for the sports events that are paying their total costs. So as much, but I think events benefit our city, and so those are kind of my comments.
Okay, my comments are, unless somebody else wants to put one in first. Go ahead.
I agree on some of the rentals concerned me with the Heritage Festival. With all three venues, it was $1,800 just in rentals, which isn't cash money that we're getting. And Armando, I know we talked about that, and that's something we could probably take off the table, and $2,000 right off the table for the Strawberry Festival. So that's not cash money we're losing. When we're talking about the police department, and maybe we could think about compromising, maybe not having the police there right when the Strawberry Festival opens at 10 o'clock, where it's a little less active, little less drinking going on and things. If we could compromise that way, just to get some costs down, but that's for something we could think about. But I agree with Councilmember Hewer on the soft costs. That would be wonderful. And
where did we end up with? I'm sorry, Chief, but why are we ending up that we have to have police at all of these all of a sudden when we haven't had problems before, and some of them are day events, and why two just out at Harvey Park when it's, just a little area. I mean, it's just a little area at Harvey Park. Yeah. So.
Heritage?
Yeah.
Heritage Festival will be at Veterans Field.
And then all of a sudden 4 for the Strawberry Festival, 4 a day?
The way it's in the report is that it's one's for the morning shift, one's for the night shift. You have to remember that there's still a carnival that's going on up until, I believe, 11 or midnight. So they accounted for both shifts.
Well, like the chamber said, I could see if they've had problems before, but if we go back on the incident reports, and I don't think the Heritage Festival ever called for anything. I've been to them, and so that's a big bump of the hard costs for everyone, and that appears to be a huge jump to all of them from this year to next year.
If I can add one thing, is that I agree that the revenue is lost for the community centers, but there are costs associated with having to go back and clean it up and get it up to the standard of the next rental. There is costs associated with waiving those fees. I'm not saying it's $750 worth. I'm just saying there are costs associated with that. And then it was actually Emily's staff who put together a lot of these costs for staffing, so it's her staff that deserve the thank you.
Well, when you have events have them put down a deposit. And I personally think if you have an event, go clean up your own mess. So why can't we put it that be responsible for cleaning
They
up?
do clean the event. They don't clean it to the standard in which we'll clean it to get it ready for the next rental. We'll go through and do an extra cleaning, from what I'm told,
Okay.
to get it to that level of being rented again.
Okay. And the other thing, raising this up to $5,000 doesn't mean you're going to give everybody $5,000, because you need to look at their budgets. That's where, to me, individually, we need to look at everything and don't cookie cutter. That's my opinion. If we want the taxpayers to see exactly where everything's going, well, maybe we should individually see the benefit, the cost, the benefit, and, like they said, some of them bring a lot of people in and some of them don't, and I don't think there's any basic calculation that you could use on any of them. Anyone else?
In looking at the policy, I'm back, if I understand this correctly, they have to have their application submitted by the first Monday of February and no later than the third Thursday of March. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So we're in trouble already.
That would be all of these 9 applicants, correct?
Including whoever else would like to submit during that time frame.
Okay. But then under the policy general requirements, it says under number 13, within 45 days of the calendar event scheduled, they have to submit their program event operations budget. So how are we going to know, I guess if we're using this 50% or 5,000 maximum, it doesn't make sense that you don't have what the budget is until 45 days before, so you wouldn't be able to do it as part of the budget, would you?
We talked a little bit about that before. They'd give us I already know what my budget is for Lighting of the Night coming up.
Okay.
Now, 45 days before that, I should have a good handle on what I have spent, the deposits that are going out, entertainment, things like that, where that's what I would submit, and then that's where we would waive the X amount of dollars for that event. But if you're not going to go up to the 50%, I don't think it really matters anymore that they're submitting that budget 45 days in advance.
Say that again?
So their preliminary budget will be given to us during this application process.
Okay, so a preliminary budget is
Right.
required.
And then
Okay.
right as we get closer to the event, we would require, okay, you're 45 days out, you should know what your budget is.
Okay.
Or close enough to the point where we can review it.
Okay, I didn't see any reference to a preliminary budget in the document. Maybe I just missed it.
Well, that way we would know how much they were
Sure.
asking for initially.
Sure, okay. The other question I have, and I guess I'll ask it of Councilmember Hewer or whoever else. When you say, when you reference the soft cost versus the hard cost, is that basically what is printed in the staff report, or a new definition of hard costs and soft costs?
No, basically what was printed here. I just, it's just like, let's take, for example, the Strawberry Festival. If you took out the soft costs versus the hard cost is about $6,000.
Right.
The soft cost was about 4 of that. So, like I said.
What are other costs then?
Oh, I was including other costs as hard costs, unless it was fee. I took out like the rental waiver fees. I was just, hard.
Because I couldn't follow. I was listening to you, but I could not follow and determine what was hard cost versus soft cost.
Well, I just went with what
They're
they
kind
had,
of on this
what they,
piece of paper
but the
here.
other costs, most of the other costs were kind of a mixture. I mean, rental
Yeah.
fees, I think, could be, I mean, I guess we could define rental fees as soft costs. That was the main thing that was on the other costs.
Right.
When you go through the things, you know. I would like to say that, you know, I am not a professional law enforcement person, and I think that if our police chief, as a person who looks at events and has to do crisis, or not crisis isn't the word I want to do.
Crowd management.
Has to do a risk assessment, that's his job. And that's one of the things that we would expect our law enforcement officers to do and for our police chief to do. And I just, in listening to the council's comments, I have a little bit of a problem that the council second guesses our police chief in the fact that he's the one that has to do the risk assessment. And personally, I respect that and think that if he believes that that's what an event requires because of the number of people or the location or for whatever reason, that I would rather know that our community is safe and that we are adequately staffed to handle any kind of emergency that might happen.
I meant no disrespect. But here's the deal. When you look into a risk assessment, if nothing's ever happened in the past 10 years, how do you figure out that you're going to need 4 of them there this year? If you're going to assess it, where did you come up with we need 4 now, or where did you come up with we need 2? And I'm not trying to disrespect you. I'm just trying to show that, you know, we didn't have them before, so what brought on the we need them all? That kind of scares me that you think a lot of stuff's going to be happening.
My background is in special events. I spent 15 years working special events, leading them, and then the last 10 managing special events at sports arenas and public festivals. And so if you plan for the worst case scenario, it will not happen. If you do not plan, it will happen. Small community events, as they grow, as people start finding out about them, as they come into a community that they don't have ownership to, such as the Strawberry Festival at $20,000 is advertised to draw people into our city. There's a likelihood of those folks will be your primary people that want to cause problems. And then anytime you add alcohol into the mix, whether it's a little bit or a lot, changes people's perspective on what they will or will not do, and then they regret it later. So you take 30,000 people over a 2-day period and put them into a fenced-in area, and all it takes is one person to cause a panic, and then you have to control that. And the problem, I believe, is that in the past, and speaking with staff who have been here throughout the entire time, the words from them are, we just got really lucky that nothing has happened. And the other thing is that just because it's not a critical incident that has occurred at these doesn't mean that we haven't had incidences in the past. It's just that we deal with them as low-key as possible, and we get those folks out. When I got here, I realized that we just used on-duty staff. So the numbers that were presented were 2014 numbers, much less than what they are today. I never saw those numbers, so I couldn't speak to that. What I also can't speak to is how they budgeted and how they managed that and reported out that budget in those years. I can just tell you what we're doing now. So it's my professional opinion that 2 is actually probably inadequate if in the event that there's a large incident, but those 2 will deter people from wanting to commit any kind of large incident. And so I also pay attention to what's going on in the world today, and there's a lot of people out there wanting to do harm at events. Just in the last 2 days, we've had quite a bit in our nation, and so Galt would not be immune to that. So I just think it's the best case or best practice to at least have someone out there that is trained to look for those things that will cause problems and to address them as quietly as possible, which is what I've instructed the police officers to do at these events. So that's how I came up with the 2 people minimum.
And if I can address Strawberry Festival real quick, there are things security cannot do that law enforcement can do. And the example I give you is the lost child. There are reporting issues that security cannot do that law enforcement must do. Correct, Chief?
Well, that's correct. And then, of course, the scenario that I gave with the undesirables that came into the Strawberry Festival, I'm being kind in my description, and there were a number of them. And, of course, we don't know what they plan on doing, but when they saw the cops, they left. They turned right around and walked straight out the gate and never came back. So you can't measure that success, and you certainly don't know what they plan on doing, but they would not have that same reaction for a security guard, regardless of who the security guard is. So they pay for themselves time and time again at these events, and let's hope in the next 20 years we never have anything happen. But that'll be because we're paying attention and we're planning for the worst case scenario.
Well, and I think having the eyes and the officers, the eyes and ears of the officers, looking for the person that, there are alcohol served at some of these events, that decided to drink too much, and maybe the officer can deter that person getting behind the wheel of a car and really having a tragedy. Or, those kind of things, I think that there is a true benefit to having professionals on duty watching to make sure that the event stays safe.
Okay, we get it. Now on to what's your pleasure, council? We got to direct it to Armando some way.
I agree with Cruz with the $5,000. I kind of like to have that in the policy instead of 3. Not saying we're giving everybody 5.
Right.
Well, the policy as it reads says 3, but it doesn't mean that we're guaranteeing 3. It means it says that we can give them more. I feel uncomfortable going to 5 as well. I think we have the ability under the existing policy to go to 5 if that's what, council's inclination is, but I don't think we should set the minimum bar at 5,000.
That was actually the ceiling.
Excuse me.
Okay, the deal with that is you don't want to individually come up and talk to everybody about one, but if you say that I'm just playing the devil's advocate here, you change it, everybody can come up, and we aren't cookie cuttering it, and we are going to have to speak to every person as it comes along.
I think that's going to happen regardless.
That's what I'm saying. And another thing is, on my opinion, the 50%, I don't like that number 5.
I think it has
much
to go.
myself.
Yeah.
I don't need it. I don't think we need the 50%. I just think we need to put up to whatever our dollar amount is. Because some of these these organizations bring great value to us, and I'm with some of these people that it's not always about the dollar amount. And there is a lot of volunteers, and I don't think that there isn't anybody out there that isn't hustling to make this, whatever it is they're having, work. And, that's with extravaganza. They work really hard, and they're not out to earn a ton of money. And the same thing with the food trucks. The food trucks are just like Councilmember Ewer said, are bringing way value down to our, there's a lot of people that show up for those on the first Saturday, and it's only going to get better as the weather gets better because, so I don't know.
From a policy and budget point,
Over the budget.
I guess because I'm looking down the road, what happens 2 years from now or 5 years from now when this list of 9 becomes a list of 18? Because organizations decide to do other events. We can't just limit it to these 9. It could go more. I'd really like us, for policy purposes, to look at it just as we do with the community grant program, that we set a maximum amount that the city's going to provide in sponsorship, whether that's $45,000, whether that's $20,000, whatever the amount is, that we will waive up to this amount of soft costs total, because I'm concerned that this budget item just continues to grow and grow. And at some point, for budgetary purposes, I think we need to cap it, that says that the maximum that the city will provide in sponsorship for hard costs is X number of dollars, and for soft costs is X number of dollars, or total costs of whatever. I think that for policy and budget purposes, and not just looking at these 9 events today, but what do the events look like down the road when now what is $35,000 has become $50,000 because whatever council is here at that time, it's always hard to say no. Because the council then looks like, they're the Grinch. When in fact, this is the taxpayers' money again. It's not the council's money, and we need to be looking at what this looks like in the overall picture, and not just today, but down the road.
And we talk to our taxpayers, and we talk to our constituents, and we don't sit up here just basing this on our own opinions all the time. Just because one is different from the other doesn't mean that one is right and one is wrong. And you said that we're putting these 9 up here, but if another one comes along, it's got to be brought to council. So it's not going to be like every year we're going to add 15 or 20 more. It's, and
I'm referring to the policy, not these 9. I'm referring to the policy in general.
Well, and I'm referring
you're
to the
saying that we're
policy
gonna spend-
too, that we're going to have, that this, on the policy, we've got the recommendation is these 9 on the policy.
No, these 9 are separate from the policy.
Yeah, this is part 1.
Part 1. But we have them listed for a reason.
The first one is the
apparently.
policy that we're asking you to adopt.
Just adopt a policy.
And then apply that to these 9 events that we've identified to give direction to staff to put in the budget. You will give final approval during the budget process for these 9.
I do agree we should have a budget set on it, but what area I do have issue with is that TOT just goes to general fund. TOT is designed specifically a taxation for people who come here for tourist purposes. Okay?
Not
Why?
necessarily.
Well, I looked at the online before I went any further. It's tourism dollars or tourism overnight stays.
Well, it's
Yeah.
it's an occupancy tax.
Right.
It's simply a tax that a city, a jurisdiction elects to place. It's not
Correct.
mandatory.
Up to a stay of 30 days.
It's for road use. I mean,
It's for road transportation. It's not just tourism.
Nope.
It's not just that.
Well, it's
That was my
divided
point,
up.
Mark.
It's
But that's-
divided up into things.
Point I'm trying to get
General
at.
fund is used for whatever the city
Right.
deems necessary from that tax revenue.
And a lot of cities use it for tourism, part of it. for
Not all of
tourism.
it.
Yes.
Point I'm trying to get at here is that I would like to see 25% of that, whatever that is, set aside for this purpose.
And that's a whole new can of
How much money are
worms.
you talking about?
Well, in this particular case, it's only $50,000. That's the top end.
Gene's having a heart attack over there.
Yeah, I think that's a different policy discussion on how the TOT is used.
Okay, what, can you
I'm
just tell
using-
us now what it's used for? Does somebody know? I
Well,
mean,
the
just
T-
so we could,
The TOT goes into the general fund, and there's kind of two sides to the discussion. And the city uses that those dollars, and where all our general fund dollars come from. It's property tax, sales tax, transaction tax. We have a list of things that the general fund is used for. Starting out with police. Roads, our parks, there's everything that the general fund is used for. So that TOT is part of that. If, tourist occupancy tax in general is to offset the impact to the city from your visitors that come to your community. And, the impact of visitors, are in a variety of ways. It's, the impact to your road systems, your drainage, your police services. It does go to, you can say $35,000 this last year goes to from could be coming from TOT to go to these events. We offset those costs. The rentals that we give away at the Littleton Center. Those are costs that are offset. Revenues that we're not bringing in. And if we were bringing them in, that may offset some of the costs that we have on deferred maintenance of that facility. So you have that balance of TOT. Bottom line, the council sets policy on how we spend our revenues and our dollars. If we want to get into a TOT discussion, we need to get it into the budget, and you need to see what the budget numbers are.
is there a line that says TOT and says what it's spent on?
No.
I'm just asking,
No,
because
there's
I
not.
don't,
No.
know.
It's
It's just thrown into the general fund, and
it's a
then
general
nobody
fund.
ever says what it's used
General
for.
fund revenue
Yes.
mixed in with, the other
Yeah.
revenues that we receive to pay for our general fund expenses. And, when we go through the budget, we speak with the council about what are the priorities, with the general fund expenses. And as I went through last year, we highlighted a lot of costs that we aren't covering. And there's a balance. This is some tough policy decisions, and we're trying to streamline. With this policy, and I applaud Armando and the staff and Monica that gave the presentation, for trying to put this together, because we're trying to streamline and understand from the council as we prepare our budget, what do we need to allocate, for these community events. They're very important to the community. We have a lot of volunteerism in this community that put a lot of energy and time that goes into putting these events together, and I think they're very important. But again, as a city, as a business, we have a balance, and we're in the business to provide public service in a lot of different areas. This is just one of those areas. So, what do we want to focus on? If we're focusing dollars on this specific area or more dollars, then something else is going to have to give. Right now we're in the budget process, and, Emily, sorry, Ms. Boyd came to me, and I got $2.4 million of more requests than we have revenue for next year that I'm trying to balance out before I bring a balanced budget to the council. That's my job, bring you guys a balanced budget.
Right.
And so, we've been in budget meetings the last 2 weeks trying to figure out, how do I bring you a balanced budget when I got more requests than I have revenue to come in. And this is part of that. How much do we, provide economically, because kind of part of our economic development, to continue to bring customers and people into our city, but also provide those services. And, it's a balance, and it's a difficult decision. I know as a council and as policy, with this afternoon's item, I think at this point, you probably want to get some kind of policy direction, let staff kind of go back and rewrite, the document to reflect what the council gives us direction on, so we can bring in kind of a polished document or revised document back at the next meeting, so you can take a look at. There's two motions that we're looking for this evening. One is on the policy document. Two is on the events going forward for next year, so we have a little bit more clarity on how to budget those events, the 9 events, and kind of give us some direction on what are we looking at for this next year. Your budget document, we'd like to get in front of the council first meeting in June is what we're trying to do. Before that, you're going to see the cost allocation plan. You're going to see lighting landscape districts. You're going to need to see, I think, one other document, but
Class comp.
Class comp is coming. We just rolling out a compensation analysis that we just did, and that'll be rolled out to the council here. So we have a lot of different documents coming towards the council that are going to kind of bring the culmination of those documents on the budget. This is part of that. We need to just understand what part or what piece we need to budget for events, and how do we move forward with promoting our community.
Okay, well, suggestions, ideas, break time, whatever.
Well, I think for budget purposes, what I propose is that we sponsor the soft costs and provide sponsorship to the soft costs, and that we do a budget item of hard costs not exceeding $15,000 for these 9 events. Because when you pull out the soft costs, it actually falls, because a lot of the costs looks to me maybe about 50%, not quite, or something. But I just think that we should, particularly as we go forward this first year, events are, of course, they're already working on events and something to that effect. But I just think that we need to set a maximum amount that we provide in the way of scholarship every year. Sponsorship, I'm sorry. for special events.
And waive the soft costs?
And waive the soft costs, and at some point we might want, I guess we could look at the maximum soft costs that we want to waive, but I'm comfortable waiving soft costs, but I think that we need to have a maximum of hard costs that we're waiving. TOT, whether it's in the general fund or we set it aside as a special item, it really doesn't make much of a difference. These items are all coming out of the general fund, so saying that they're going to come directly out of TOT doesn't.
Well, if you made a line item, it would. You can make anything a line item.
You can't.
Now, Mark, you had something different, correct? So do I have a second on Lori's?
If I may, just really quickly, just
I
to
was
clarify,
making
you
a-
can't, because the TOT is a general tax, you can't designate it for certain
Yes.
items, or it can change it to a special tax, which requires a higher approval amount of the voter, just to clarify.
I wasn't actually making a
Oh.
motion. I was kind of just giving my input.
What was your?
Okay, well, somebody
I
needs.
was saying 15,000 in hard costs.
Which is 6,000.
And we can, take council direction, kind of put some dollars and numbers to that, and bring that back to the next meeting so we can see what that looks like.
I think it would be helpful because I don't know what the costs are going to be once we take out the soft costs out of each one.
But
of
we're
them.
not taking into an account into this what it's costing the people to do it. So taking out soft costs, it only means it's going to be cheaper for you guys for the events and probably more expensive for the people that are putting it on.
I don't think
Yeah,
so.
I
the
don't
other way
think
around.
I'm not suggesting that, Mary Lou. I'm just saying, if we waive all the soft costs and we set a limit that says we'll provide sponsorship to the 9 events not to exceed 15,000, and you take out the soft costs, that drops the food one completely, because it was all soft costs, so there's no cost in that. It then brings 8 events for the amount to be, and some of those events
Are less
when you
than-
take out
yeah.
soft costs, only need $1,000.
I
As
think,
compared to something like the Strawberry Festival that obviously needs, it looks like about $6,000 in hard costs.
I kind of agree with that. I would hold on the dollar amount at this point. I wouldn't want to designate
That's brought back?
15,000. Maybe it would be a little bit more, or maybe a little bit less. But I'd like to know historically what have these costs been, or are we? Well, you didn't calculate them the way you calculated them in this report, correct?
Right.
They have not been calculated in prior years.
No, they have not. There is no comparison to go back to.
Well, then I guess using these as a projection, I would be comfortable just to come back, separate out those costs. Let's see, what that leaves, the total hard costs are going to be. And then I would feel much more comfortable establishing a maximum dollar amount, one pot, and then we decide. Split it up.
Is that a motion?
Well,
Well, just to bring staff direction to bring it back.
Yeah, just to bring it back in that format so that we can separate.
well, we're still not taking into account what it costs them to run it. Which,
And we haven't in the past.
Well,
Necessarily. The only thing we have done is either charge them or not charge them. So it didn't have anything to do with what they were doing on their side, I wouldn't think.
but they're basing it on what they get from us.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we show what the, and when we say don't show the hard costs or soft costs, I'd like to see just like in a red line version, okay,
Yeah.
this is the amount that soft costs would otherwise be, and here's just what hard costs are.
absolutely.
Just for clarification, soft cost facilities would be considered a soft cost.
Yes, yes.
So I believe if you take those out, we have about 19,000 left.
Well, that's what I said. That's what I'm saying,
So it's, and then we can talk about, obviously this would come back, and I guess talk about a dollar amount or how it's going to be divvied up at the next session.
But I still think, yeah, because I think that at the next meeting, we could take into account, does events that are of a longer duration or
Right,
events that,
multi-day events.
as
I agree.
compared to a half-day event.
I agree.
Yeah, that was brought up a long time ago.
And then there's always the issue about, how much it directly benefits the community.
Do you need a motion or anything?
So I think just clarifying direction, and then we can take that direction and take it back. And what I heard is, take a look at, the
Taking out the
hard
soft
costs of all the
costs.
events, eliminate the soft costs.
We would redline the soft cost
Yeah.
so you can see that.
See what it is.
Which include facilities. We'd remove the 50% required of the operating budget.
Yes.
To basically read sponsorship requests will be accepted up to, do you have a dollar amount in mind or?
We can,
I don't.
we can recommend something based on
I like
numbers.
5, but
I still stand by the 5 as a ceiling.
I mean, unless I get direction, I would leave it at 3.
I'm going to go with 5 too. Not meaning that we'll always get up there, but
And then we would still leave the, unless city council approves the higher sponsorship.
yeah.
Or something to the effect of 3,000 for one-day events and 5,000 for multi-day events, or something. I think for a one-day event, $5,000 is a lot for us to be providing sponsorship if we're waiving all the soft costs already. Because, I mean, you have to look at this. We're already waiving the soft costs, and we're still talking $5,000. That's a lot, because with
I don't
the
think
soft
any of them
costs.
would even be
They're
at
not
that
going to get
amount.
up to there, but why, so what does it matter?
Well,
Not
then,
on our costs.
then 3,000 might very well be adequate.
Well, we've got 3 that say 5 and 2 that say 3, so sounds like.
Well, the thought being, you're taking that back, you're going to modify it accordingly, and it's going to come back to us again anyway.
Right.
Correct? So once we see what the difference is in soft cost and hard cost, we may very well change that number. But it gives us something to work with.
Why don't you just provide motion, staff, we'll take a look at the dollar amount, and we'll bring back a recommendation or a couple of different dollar amounts that
Well, then you got
show
police
that.
vehicles, too.
So you kind of have a clear,
And the trash bags.
more visual of what that cost is.
Yeah, there'll be more discussion after the next one is brought back. Did you have it?
I think we got it. Thank you.
Okay, city clerk's report.
I have nothing today.
Comments by staff? Emily, we'll start with you. I'm sorry, Chris.
Actually,
It's been too quiet.
I have some really good news, especially considering the last discussion. The California Energy Commission selected the City of Galt for a grant award for our climate action plan, a corridor plan, and master plan.
Yay.
What that is the California Energy Commission had a grant available mostly for climate action plans, and you may know the planning department's been trying to get a climate action plan for a number of years, but the budget quite hasn't been there. So when this opportunity came up, it came up kind of fast, so we didn't have an opportunity to discuss it with council previously. But as part of this grant award, we were able to put in items that would be in a climate action plan. And considering we haven't started a climate action plan, we had to kind of anticipate what that might be. So what we put in there was the Carilion Boulevard master plan, where we were talking about putting that Carilion Boulevard on a road diet, doing a complete streets program with it. So we've allocated about $200,000 in this grant funding to go toward that. I should say that the total grant amount is about $650,000.
Yay.
So $200,000 will go to the Carilion Corridor master plan or complete streets project. $300,000 will then go to the master plan for the market area fairgrounds. I think you all know we've been talking about doing a master plan for the site, changing some of the land uses, changing the circulation through the site to actually include more variety of uses and maybe get better use of the site in general. So this grant money allows us, or gives us the money for the master plan. So both these master plans will include public outreach, CEQA documents, and the actual plans thereafter. So we're excited about the opportunity. It came up really fast. We had help in addition to staff. Gene and Steve helped guide me through the process. We used Rainey Planning and Management to actually write the grant for us. So we're real excited about the opportunity. So out of the roughly $650,000, $150,000 roughly for the climate action plan, $200,000 for the Carilion Boulevard master plan, and then about $300,000 for the market plan. And it's actually kind of looking at the cities that were awarded money as well. I mean, they're all pretty much larger cities. We're the only small city that really participated in it. And considering some of the cities that didn't get awards, too, it was kind of exciting. And we were, in this category, awarded the largest amount. So we're kind of excited and
Good
think it
for
was a
you.
real big coup for the city. We're real
Congratulations.
excited.
God, great job.
Good
So is this a
job.
multi-year, or I?
Ultimately, it will be. We're waiting further instructions from the Energy Commission. They will be sending out basically a contract after they do a business meeting. So actual receipt of the money will be dependent on working out the grant agreement with them. So we'll be getting further instructions in the next week or two, and we'll keep you posted as we become aware of it.
Gosh, congratulations.
Yeah, it's
Mr.
a
Winkler.
real nice win for the community, and
Yeah.
especially for the Galt Market area and the 45 acres that we have here. Of taking a look at doing a visioning, kind of seeing what other uses we can utilize this area for, and then bringing in somebody to help us put that down in a master plan. And it was a big win for us.
Yeah, congratulations.
Mr. Winkler.
A couple of quick items. We've been sending tidbits your way related to the soon commencement of the 4th Street, Bleach Streets project. Mark and his team, we can get the weather to give us some solid sun and not liquid sun. That project should be getting started here within the next week or so. And that's going to have some impacts on 4th Street and downtown businesses as far as interrupting some parking. So we're working on some interim plans to help accommodate that. And one of the things, we're talking about special events tonight, we are looking to probably need to relocate the food truck events for May and June, and we'll kind of keep an eye on July. Hopefully we'll be getting nearing to completion. We've met with the chamber representative, Mr. Sleece and I. We think we've come up with a workable win-win. We'll move it around the corner onto C Street and close the 2 blocks south of 4th Street there on C. And as part of that, we'll be buying some special safety barricades. They're basically plastic K-rails we can fill with water to make sure nobody accidentally plows through that, given that that's more of a Main Street venue. And we'll look to work with them to make sure that their events go on in spite of the disruptions on 4th Street. So more to follow on that. And then lastly, just got the numbers on our March water conservation, 37.5% below the average of the same month in 2014 and 15. So we're doing well as a city. Next month, we'll be bringing back to you an annual report on, we were asked for, as we approve the water rates, kind of a look back at how we're doing on revenue versus planned revenue. And so probably the second meeting in May, we'll be bringing back a report on that. And with these kind of conservation numbers, I think we'll find that what we adopted was prudent.
Smarty pants.
That was some kind of Freudian slip. I'm not sure whether.
Mark? Parks over there? Chief? Oh, no, yes?
I thought you were calling for Mark.
I said Parks over there.
Sorry.
Because there were 2 of you.
Our Aquatic Center is now open. We started our Gator program this week. Now that we're past spring break, our T-ball, softball programs will start playing games again this weekend. Hopefully, weather cooperating, and that's about it.
Chief?
This Wednesday night is Meet Your City Staff Night. It's part of our speaker series. We're inviting the public to come out, and we have presentations from all the different departments. Staff's going to be available. Very quick overview of the different departments, and then opening up to questions. So it's a great opportunity for anybody that has any questions about what's going on in the city or specific departments to come out and get their questions answered. So that's at the police department from 7 to 8 this Wednesday the 19th. And then the drug take back is happening on the 29th at the police department. It's an opportunity to bring in your unused, unwanted drugs that you might have around your house, prescription drugs. Those things collect up in the medicine cabinet, and the first thing we want to do is make sure that they don't get flushed down the drain, because then Mr. Winkler has to deal with them. And then secondarily, it keeps them out of the hands of kids that might try to steal them out of different medicine cabinets. So it definitely helps. We last year doubled our amount that was brought into the police department. And that had a lot to do with our outreach to the Spanish-speaking population, which we did not do before. And so this year we're anticipating the same results. It's a nationwide program. Every police department that participates has a site. Not every police department does it, but we do. And once we collect up last year 5 huge boxes full of medications, then we turn them over to the Department of Justice. The questions that have come up on social media so far is, do they have to be in a bottle? No. You just need to bring them in. What we recommend is that you take the labels off of your prescription bottles, but they do not have to be in a bottle, and it does not have to be prescription meds either. If you have old aspirin, things over the counter that you want to get, medication you want to get rid of, you can also bring those in. It's an amazing event, and if you saw the results of all of those medications that are brought in that are not going to be flushed down the toilet or in the hands of somebody that shouldn't be taking them, it's an absolutely amazing event nationwide.
Thank you, Chief. Gene?
Just staff's real busy working on budget and several documents to get to the council in the next 2 months. As I sit through these budget meetings and go through each department and our CIP, just amazing staff that the city has, the amount of projects and programs that we are doing for the community, and just kind of sitting back and reflecting. We do a lot, and we got a good staff.
Thank you. Kimberly? Okay. Lori? Mark?
Other than extravaganza, although rained out early, was a great success.
That was fun.
I love the fact that all the vendors took off. They left when they were given the chance to leave. But those kids stuck around till every single one of those eggs were gone. It was a lot of fun.
Kurt?
Nothing.
Paige? Paige?
Yeah, I had Mark Cruz and I had a lovely tour of the wastewater plant and the lift station. Thank you, gentlemen. It's very informative. Not worried about growing, that we can handle a few more houses around town. It was very informative, and it wasn't as stinky as I thought. You guys have that well under control. And also, I'd like to put on the agenda to bring back up for discussion the day meetings. It's becoming a hardship on my job today. I was late because I was administering state tests, and I'm contracted to do that. So I had to get the testing started before I could have somebody cover, because it's a special passcode and all this stuff. So maybe look at the attendance and discuss that at the next meeting.
Well, maybe, we could bring, that was on my agenda too, because it is a city council meeting, and if a city council member can't make it because of their work, we should respect her and make it when she could show up, especially when she lost her other job at the newspaper.
Thank you.
So I know that you only have one kind of livelihood now, and I think we ought to respect the fact that you can't be here, and we ought to seriously change it. And another thing I wanted to bring up was that Bring Back Community Grant. Being as this, the one that we just had was just a 501c whatever, why did we make it the 501c3?
Because there's 21 to 29, and I know by making it a 3, it would limit the chamber from being able to participate in this. The school district is not a 3, so that's why I left it at a 501c. And then you guys could use your discretion in who you would be providing that. Again, I like the gray area, the flexibility in the policy, and that's why I made that decision to put that in there.
Well, so maybe we should bring that back to the community grant, because it's up to us to decide who gets them anyway, correct? Correct? Yes. So possibly think about that. And then one more thing. The extravaganza was a lot of fun. I got to, on a personal note, got to bring out my booth for Perfectly Possible. We're up and running our 501c3. And we had a lot of interest, and it was very nice. And I had a good time that day because I got to go out and see a lot of people. There were some really fun booths out there. It was really well done. The rain stopped us, but it was fun there. Had a good time. And just one other thing, I know you're working on the budget, and I'm just going to bring it up just to remember CERT, because they are at a lot of our events and they do need our support. So Please remember them. And with that, we're done.
Mayor, just what you're saying, we can bring back the meetings at the next council meeting. Does council want us to bring back the community grant?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Do you want us to bring back the community grant for analysis? Is that?
Yeah, well, can we,
When is that?
do we have to bring it back, or can we just, I mean, I know we have to bring it back, but,
I think it's
just
in
one
a,
little,
Well, it's already gone out to the public.
okay, so
As,
we-
under the current policy, perhaps you could bring it back and change it for the
Next
following
year.
year?
next year.
okay.
What are we talking about changing?
The
Well, because
501c3?
on the community grant, we have 501, on this, people could be a 501c, whatever, there's 29 of them.
Right.
On the community grant one, we only made it a 501c3, so,
So we can look at that policy after this year.
yeah, the 10,000, you know, that we get, yeah, the community grant.
After this year, we'll look at the policy, or
Bring it back.
this cycle, we'll look at the
Hurry up and
policy.
wait. Okay. Mission accomplished, meeting.